condition. And the Senate resolution that we've all co-signed and co-sponsored basically is going to address this. And I've got to speak personally for my state. I come from a little state of West Virginia, a little community of 400 people, and I watched my grandmother growing up. She took care of everybody. She took care of everybody. They all would come and stay with her. She would do whatever she could to keep somebody as comfortable as she could and take care of them with a compassion I've never seen. So with that, it's kind of ingrained in who we are and who I am for sure. But we're talking now in the state of West Virginia, 800,000 people out of 1.8 million people will be affected. 400,000 directly will not be able to buy insurance. 400,000 will basically be, prices will be raised to the point they can't afford it. So 800,000 in jeopardy. It's just inhumane. This is what we dealt with before. We thought that basically that this would be something that everybody, it would touch everyone's heart, because I don't know of anybody, all of you all sitting here, doesn't have somebody in your family, immediate family, or extended family, that's not affected with some type of a pre-existing condition, because the list is long. But the things that we hear most about. On top of that, you would think that a statewide official in my state of West Virginia and all of our states, the statewide elected officials, would understand the people that we represent and the population base that we have. I have an attorney general in my state that basically has not only signed on, but eagerly has defended it. He wants to repeal the entire thing. Tickled to death they have a chance of using this vehicle, which Texas versus United States of America. It's just unconscionable, really unconscionable, and this is what we're fighting about. People in West Virginia, overwhelmingly, Democrats and Republicans. This is not a bipartisan, this is not a partisan issue. It's not a political issue. This is a life or death issue. So we're asking all of our colleagues, we're asking all of our friends and our colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle to join with us, to basically join with us and stand up and speak out against this horrible, horrible position that the Attorney General's office have taken in my state, in Claire's state, but also the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice has said that they announced that they would not defend the constitutionality of ACA, including the ACA provisions that guarantee protections for people with pre-existing conditions. That, and we sent letters to Jeff Sessions. We're going to be speaking loud and clear on this. We hope they hear us, and we hope the courts hear us, and we hope that action is going to be taken that'll reverse this procedure, but we don't see anyone backing down right now. So with that, we're going to hear from Senator Bob Casey, my dear friend and my colleague, my next door neighbor in Pennsylvania, and we appreciate Bob being here.
Joe,
Bob, thank you.
I want to thank Senator Manchin, Senator McCaskill, Senator Murray for being here. When you consider what the Republicans have tried to do in the last year on health care, the way I look at it, it comes down to three actions. Number one is rip away the protections of the Affordable Care Act and do all kinds of things to undermine the exchanges. The second thing they tried to do is to decimate Medicaid, literally to decimate it, which means, of course, over time, the literal end of Medicaid expansion, which would be terrible for my state. Over 700,000 people got their health care coverage through Medicaid expansion, 1.1 million overall, including the exchanges. The third thing they've done, in addition to rip away coverage and decimate Medicaid, is sabotage, pure and simple. All of the actions by the administration to undermine the Affordable Care Act, the third way they've done it is by administrative action, actions by the Trump administration, aided and abetted by members of Congress to sabotage the system, to literally sabotage the health insurance markets, despite the efforts of Senator Murray working with Republicans to try to strengthen or stabilize those markets. So when you get to the third one, sabotage, this court action is in furtherance of that. That's exactly what they're doing in this case. They are sabotaging health care. And in this case, it's even of greater concern because they're going directly at the protections for pre-existing conditions. These protections were hard-won. Over many years, people were talking about trying to provide that kind of protection. What does it mean? It means in my state that more than 5.3 million people are at risk. That's the number of Pennsylvanians with pre-existing conditions. 643,000 of them, according to Protect Our Care, that organization, 643,000 are children, just in one state. And as we know across the country, if you look at everyone, that has a pre-existing condition, about 133 million. But anyone in this room could be on that list very soon if something happened to us. So we have to take this action by way of a resolution to give us the authority to have the Senate intervene. It's as simple as that. I would hope that my Republican friends who have said over and over again, despite voting to rip away health care, despite taking action, direct action to decimate Medicaid, and despite aiding and abetting sabotage, even in the midst of those three actions, they have all said that they agree with the protection in law now for pre-existing conditions. So I would hope, if you really care about pre-existing conditions and you've committed yourself to maintain those protections, you should sign on to this resolution. It shouldn't just be Democrats that are doing this. This should be signed on by every member of the United States Senate. We will see. This is a test of the Republican Party, whether or not they're going to do the right thing when it comes to protecting people with pre-existing conditions. And it's a pass-fail test. There's no in-between here. You're either affirmatively going to protect those folks or you're not. Senator McCaskill.
Thank you. Thank you to my colleagues. Don't take my word for it. Take the president's word for it, where he said at a rally a few weeks ago, "We gutted it." He's proud that this administration has gutted the law that provided relief to millions of Americans and hundreds and thousands of Missourians. So if they're gutting it through administrative action, which is obvious, then what we have left, based on the actions by the elected representatives in Congress, are a number of protections for people who have been sick in this country, giving them power against the very powerful insurance companies. So I love lectures about judicial activism. You want a definition of judicial activism? How about trying to use the courts to do what Congress has refused to do? How about using the courts to get a result that the elected representatives of this people have indicated they do not want? And that's what's going on right now. The Attorney General in Missouri had a decision to make. I will either stand with the people of Missouri and protect them from insurance companies deciding whether or not they get insurance based on whether or not they've had the nerve to be sick before, or I will stand with insurance companies and do away with every protection we put in the law. And by the way, this impacts not just people who are buying insurance on the exchanges. This impacts people at work. It changes the rules for whether or not you get coverage for pre-existing conditions in your employment insurance. So this will affect millions of Missourians. We are doing everything we can, and we are limited in what we can do because the Republicans are in charge, and they're determined to gut these important protections for people in my state. There is no question that the number one issue in this country right now is what are we doing to relieve the anxiety about increasing prices and the uncertainty as to whether or not you'll be able to get insurance for your child who has cystic fibrosis or for your husband who has diabetes. They want to go back to the bad old days. They want to go back to the days where the insurance companies have the right to spend as much money as they want figuring out a way to not to pay that claim. Now, I am standing foursquare with the people of Missouri that want these protections to remain in place. We should reject judicial activism. We should force the Senate to take up the bipartisan bills that will assist with costs and reaffirm our commitment to these protections. To do anything less is to say to the people of my state and this country, we no longer think you deserve the protections that the ACA has provided you from insurance companies that are more focused on greed than they are health care.
Patty Murray.
I am so proud of Senator Manchin, Senator McCaskill, and Senator Casey for leading our entire caucus on taking on this issue and calling on the Senate to stand on the side of people across the country. We have heard from day one of this administration that they were bent on taking away the protections for people in this country with pre-existing conditions. Those people across the country stood up, made their voices heard, they called, they wrote, they texted, they were out there, and they helped us defeat the repeal of the ACA that would have taken these protections away. And as Senator McCaskill said so clearly, now, because they didn't get that, they're trying to go through the courts to take away your right to get access to health care coverage if you have a pre-existing condition. Very clearly with this resolution, we are standing up on behalf of millions of Americans to say we are on your side. We will fight them wherever they take us, and in this case in the courts, because we believe people in this country should have a right to get access to health care. So I'm very proud of these three senators for leading our caucus on this very important resolution.
Let me just say one thing. I want Senator Schumer to come up if he wants to.
No, I'm here to be supportive.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you being here. And let me just say that there's a fix for this. It's a shame. You've heard me say maybe some unkind things about how this system works and this place kind of operates from a day-to-day. What makes me say that is because we have a fix in place. This young lady right here has worked very hard. We had 12 Democrats and 12 Republicans when John McCain made his famous vote at 3 o'clock in the morning that we're going to sit down and work through a process to make it better. And we did that, and they've never taken it up. And now they come down with this, basically, this asinine approach to we're going to get a death by 1,000 cuts. This Senate resolution that we're asking for, and we hope that will pass, and we hope we have our Republican colleagues join us. If they want to go home and look at the people in the eye, and probably in their own family that's going to be affected, then this is something that should be kept intact. And this part of the pre-existing condition should not be thrown out with the rest of the bathwater. So we're going to fight it and fight it very hard. This is too important for all of us. And people, as Clara said, people in all of our states, Missouri, West Virginia, Washington, Pennsylvania, New York, and every place else in America is counting on being able to have some chance of clinging on to life. It's a shame when they say, wait a minute, I'm sorry, you're too sick. I've got 400,000 people the insurance companies won't even sell. They're just saying, you're too much of a risk for me. The other 400,000 people are saying, you're pretty high risk, so you're going to pay 5 times more if you want it. They can't afford that. Or if they do, they're going to have caps to where one illness, and they're one illness away from absolutely financial ruin, financial devastation. And I'm preaching to the choir because you all have people in your family who know exactly what I'm talking about. So with that, questions? You all have any questions to us?
Yes, sir. Earlier this morning, Medicare for All caucus started in Congress, and I wanted to ask if that concept is perhaps a way to get around the sabotage that you're talking about on healthcare. Is that a concept that is feasible and you can support?
I'll just speak very quickly, and everybody else can chime in on it. We have to fix what we have in front of us. Right. We're willing to look at Medicare for All. We're willing to look at anything you want to put on the table that makes it better for Americans. But we have to look realistically also at what it does to the population base, not only just each one of our respective states, but the entire country. But they're talking about something, we're talking about something that's real right now in front of us. We can fix what we've got, and that's what we should be doing. Claire?
Well, there is a lot of debate about how we improve our healthcare system. I'm focused on how we keep these protections in place, how we bring down costs. And it may be that there is a possibility that there is an option that might be available that people could buy in to a Medicare system between the ages of 55 and 65. But to go there, for my position on that is, and I'm not speaking for anyone else other than myself, my position is until we do something about healthcare costs, there is no way that we could go to that system. And I think that in my state, when people realize it means that you're going to be required to give up the insurance you have at work, it becomes a very dicey proposition for many Missourians.
Any other questions? Yes.
Senator Manchin and McCaskill, I was wondering if your concerns on this issue are such that it has you leaning against the Kavanaugh confirmation. How would you characterize where you are?
Has nothing to do with anything except pre-existing condition for 800,000 West Virginians. Not another thing am I thinking about, but how do I keep these people protected? That is it. Yes.
Another subject, Senator Schumer?
I'm going to not take that. We're focusing on this.
He's for moral support.
and every other kind I can offer.
Anybody else want to weigh in on what the president is saying?
This is all about health care. I appreciate that, but I'm telling you, we're fighting. It's life or death in Washington. Can you imagine a person that basically knows what they had before, what they didn't have, and they finally got coverage, and now they're on the brink of losing it again because of one court decision? That's what we're dealing with. I just hope you all report on the urgency of what we're dealing with and make people understand that we have a fix right here. Let's intervene. Let's stop it from happening.
So what's the reaction from Republicans? So do you have anybody working?
Let me tell you, sometimes silence can be deafening. Silence can be deafening. I know they're hearing the same thing I'm hearing, but it seems like they just, or maybe don't want to speak out on it, and they should be.
I think the one thing to realize is that they preached repeal and replace for years. For years, they campaigned on it. They promised it. They could not get enough Republican votes for the proposals they had. Forget about the Democrats. They couldn't get enough Republican votes. And what did they do after that failure? Did they say to the American people, we know we've got a problem here and we're going to go to work on it? We're going to try to do what we can to make sure insurance remains affordable? No. They decided to ignore it. Mitch McConnell has the power. Paul Ryan has the power to improve health care for Americans. And they are deciding to blow up the exchanges and to use the courts to finish the job in terms of protections for Americans. That's the decision they've made, and they should be held accountable for that decision. If they want to change their mind tomorrow, we're ready. We've been saying for years we could fix some of the problems in the ACA. We could improve it. We still can. But they, on the other hand, said they made a promise, and I hear Republicans saying promise made, promise delivered. No, not so fast. There is nothing in place that will protect the people in my state in terms of affordability and access to insurance. Nothing. And they're trying to finish the job. And that's why we're here today, because we're going to try to stand in the breach and keep them from finishing the job.
Do you hear any groundswell? Last question. Do you
Yes.
hear groundswell from people?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
You wouldn't believe it. I did 53 town halls last year. 53 town halls. And most of those town halls were in counties where I'm not very popular, where Donald Trump won by more than 30 points. And you know the common theme? You know the common theme in all of those town halls? Healthcare, 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 healthcare. It is the number one issue in my state, and I would venture a guess it's the number one issue in this whole country.
The cost of health care, here's what we're talking about. Patty will tell you what they worked on. There's 12 Ds and 12 Rs. We met 8 o'clock every morning. We were meeting every morning after, and I always refer to it, I says, I wasn't here in 2009 when it was passed. There's some things I wanted to do different, and things I thought wouldn't work. Well, there's things that need to be fixed. And there's nobody willing to fix it because you know why? The dog kept chasing that car. Dog chased the car in 2010. Dog chased the car in 2012. Dog chased the car in 2014. Dog caught the car in 2016. Didn't know what to do with the car. Dog's hanging on that bumper, and by God, it's a little bit rough. Now we sit down and we start working it out. We used the model of Alaska. We used even some models in Indiana, where Vice President Pence is from, trying to improve and make it better. It's been laying on the majority leader's desk for how long? Over a year now. Can't get them to move. And they take this approach when we have a fix. So when I say this place sucks, that's what sucks about this place. It's exactly what it does.
Let me just add one thing about the mechanics here. Look, this isn't real complicated. This is the resolution. It's not even 3 pages long. Republicans could read this very quickly if they haven't already, but here's page 3. Resolved that the Senate Legal Counsel is authorized to represent the Senate in the case, number 1, to intervene as a party in the matter, number 2, to defend all provisions of the act. Now, so if you have said as a Republican that you're for all this repeal and sabotage and decimate, you're still for that, I guess, but they have all said, almost to a person, as far as I know, that they will vote for something that will ensure that people with pre-existing conditions are protected. This is their chance. Real simple and not complicated.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Thank you. Appreciate it.